CBC's Little Black Book, that is the topic of tonight's byline. Just over a year ago, I told you about Hubert Lacroix, the president of CBC, acting like Richard Nixon by keeping an enemies list. I wasn't shocked to find out that I was on the enemies list or that my friend Ezra Levant was on it. I was shocked to find out that they had 547 pages on me. In the column where I revealed the enemies list, I also mentioned that there was something called the Quebecor briefing book mentioned there. Quebecor briefing book. What could that be about, we wonder? Well, CBC was asked for the document and they said, well, you can't have it. Then CBC said, you can't have it because it doesn't exist. Well, here's the letter saying that it doesn't exist. When we showed them the email with an attachment called the Quebecor briefing book, they said, oh, that Quebecor briefing book. Yeah, well, that guy quit, they said, so you can't have that anymore. Of course, it was all a lie. CBC was pushed for 14 months to produce their Nixonian document detailing all the dirt they had on us. Finally, they relented. So what's in it? Well, a lot of it mentions me and my CBC money drain stories that popped up in the papers of Sun Media since the fall of 2010. The document notes the stories that I wrote on subjects such as the top-line perks CBC bosses take, the ongoing efforts to keep the public in the dark about how much money they spend on things like building maintenance, and their decision to fight the Federal Information Commissioner in federal court to stop federal taxpayers from finding out how their money was being spent. Strangely, though, this isn't all that CBC was interested in. They were apparently big readers of my blog, Lilley's Pad. I thought I had fans, but, maybe it's all just CBC executives reading up on what I have to say about them. I wouldn't be surprised. The other day, the folks that run the blog CBC Exposed, they sent me a note showing that someone at CBC's Montreal headquarters had actually arrived at the site by Googling, why do Canadians hate the CBC? So they're out there Googling themselves, reading my blog, and then they document all this stuff, and this is done with your money, people. In one document, CBC executives, they detail how they're upset that I call Hubert Lacroix Hubie and refer to him at one point as Herbert. This was back in August of 2011. Now, someone emailed me, and they emailed Lacroix. I was CC'd on it. They called Hubie Herbert in the email. They also made all kinds of allegations about inappropriate activity between Christine Stewart, the then head of CBC English, and her husband, Zaib Sheikh. He was being granted some great deals to develop programs for CBC. Now, why would I blog about this? Because Hubert, hit reply all, and since I was CC'd on the email along with a pile of others, I received his angry reply. I mean, here was the head of CBC, whose organization wouldn't release simple requests through access to information, such as how many cars does CBC own or lease, and he was blasting a pile of people with details of the personal and business relationships of Little Moss star Zaib Sheikh. They document all of this in the briefing book. They're upset that I blogged about Hubie. Look, I appreciate the readers, but, why is CBC wasting your money tracking my blog and then documenting it in a book to attack the Sun? Now, what other weird stuff did they document? Well, they were creeping the Facebook page of one of Ezra's interns, noting that he posts anti-CBC messages at dozens of Facebook sites. So it's not just me they monitor, it's not just Ezra, it's also Ezra's intern. And this, again, this is your money, folks. I'm not surprised that they documented Ezra's trip to the CBC atrium where he had a little fun with a life preserver, but I am shocked that they documented some of Ezra's guests, including Conservative MP Rob Anders, who called for CBC to be defunded. They thought it was horrible that it was on. But here's the richest of all. CBC was incredibly upset that two of my fellow Sun News co-hosts, Ezra Levant and Michael Corrin, mocked them for their over-the-top coverage of the late Jack Layton's funeral. They termed this egregious behavior. It's horrible. You know what I take away from this? CBC watches more than my mother. They have high-paid civil servants document what we say and wrap it up in a report. Then, to add insult to injury, they claim that this document doesn't exist and fight its release for 14 months. Did I mention that a good part of this document is all about them defending themselves against the claims that they're too secretive? CBC has simply outlived its mandate, folks. We don't need a government broadcaster anymore, if we ever did. It's time to sell the CBC. And that's the byline.
Why aren't you wearing orange? Michael Corrin, Where's your orange tie? Why do you hate Canada, sir? I can help you out. Here's an Orange Crush.
Thank you. I'm on a diet, but why not?
Me too, as you can see. We need a new secular religion in this country, and I think Jack Layton is filling the gap. What do you think?
People have worked
Am I
in this
disgusting for mocking the funeral
No,
of
you're
a man?
just disgusting.
At what point does someone say, you're putting that body on a bloody campaign?
That is part of what CBC documents in their little black book on Sun News. Ezra Levant joins us now, sans orange wig, to talk more about this. Ezra, were you surprised to find out that they were so upset that you wore an orange wig?
Well, you know, I don't mind that there's a rivalry between news organizations. I mean, we certainly take shots at the CBC, but we do so because they're using our government money. And that's what's creepy about this. I mean, when most people surf Facebook at work, they're sort of embarrassed about it because that's called goofing off. Only at the CBC would surfing through Facebook and checking out the photos of interns on my show be called work and be paid for by taxpayers, and they'd have these memos. And here's the kicker, Brian, and I think you zeroed in on it. The fact that they tried to pretend it didn't exist and hid it and then finally delayed for more than a year shows what a lawyer would call a guilty mind, a mala fides. They knew they were doing something wrong ethically with taxpayers' dollars, and it's just simply inappropriate to spy using government resources. Brian, I don't think it's too crazy to think that you should shred your garbage before putting it out every week when the garbage man comes, because it would not shock me if the kind of people who spend thousands of dollars building files on you, surfing the Facebook pages of my interns, have also popped by your house to take a little peeping Tom, to look what you're doing, maybe go through your garbage bins.
Well,
it's the
they'll find
same
out I'm not
mindset.
using the green bin. And that would be shock and horror to the folks at CBC. You're not composting. What's wrong with you?
Listen, if you're into making enemies lists, Richard Nixon style,
yeah.
If you're into lying about it, Nixon style, if you're into looking at friends of enemies and making all these complex conspiracy theories, like seriously, you're going after a young intern on my show and you're going through their Facebook photos, maybe checking out their spouse or girlfriend. Like seriously, this is being done on taxpayers' money. If this was done in a private company,
creepy.
Yeah, and then lying about it because they knew what they were doing was weird and creepy and probably break some sort of law about the purpose of CBC money. You simply can't take CBC money and use it as a private war chest for your personal feud against people you don't like. That is against the rules.
All right, look, I want to read off one of the things that they say because they talk all about this Toronto International Film Festival party that you and I covered extensively, that George Stroumboulopoulos had. And so they detail all the great reasons they had it, and then their criticism of it is Lilley characterizes Strombo TIFF event as being held because George Stroumboulopoulos, quote, likes partying with people. Well, I think I'm quoting Strombo, so let's play that clip.
I've always wanted to be in a band, not a solo artist, and I want to be in a community. An individual is a tree, a group of individuals is a forest, and forests are strong and they're beautiful and they work together and they feed other things and other things feed them. That's sincerely what it is. I like partying with people. I just want to be around cool people who do cool things.
I never get tired of hearing that. He says, yeah, I like partying with people.
Well,
I quote him and they get upset.
I guess the alternative is partying with pets or something. I don't know. Or partying with inanimate objects. Yeah, partying with people, those are the better kind of parties. You know, again, I have no problem with someone having a red carpet thing. The Toronto Film Festival, there's tons of private companies who spend millions. But this was the CBC spending enormous amounts of money for basically an ego massage for a guy who, dude, I totally like partying with people.
I'll tell you who is on this, okay? So this email, this document was drafted up and distributed by a guy named Jeff Kay. He's the one no longer with CBC. Was sent along to Sean Poulter. He's their government relations specialist. Yes, CBC has a paid government lobbyist to just deal with the government all the time. It was sent to Marco Dubé, who was another one of their big shot spokespeople, and Bill Chambers. He's one of the guys who's probably the most upset because Bill Chambers is one of the executives that split the kitty, the bonus kitty that I wrote about, and that shows up in there. They're upset that we're pointing out that they're laying off staff telling the government you better pay up because we don't have any more money, and then splitting $1 million bonus kitty between 10
and throwing a
people.
red carpet party at the film festival. Now, the thing is, if George Stroumboulopoulos was a movie star, I would understand that, but he just likes to party with people.
All right, Ezra, good talking to you as always, my friend.
Thanks,
Have a
man.
great weekend.
Bye-bye.